going to be a little bit different than some of my other videos. And the reason for that is I think there is something that if 90% of pianists knew, it would help them so much to just like elevate their level of piano skills. And it's not difficult. I'm not going to say like it's a cheat code or it's like super easy or anything like that, because that oversimplifies it. But I think if you can understand these basic principles, then it's going to help so much with you just being able to play piano and music in general. I'm going to use that song. I think it's like a river in you or something. If you've ever heard a piano being played, you've probably heard that song. Everybody loves it. It's very beautiful. It looks really complicated, but it's actually, if you understand these principles that I'm going to talk about, it's going to be very easy for you as well. You may have noticed, if you've seen any of my other videos, that I don't use sheet music very often. The only time I really use sheet music is if I'm doing like a performance where I'm accompanying somebody else and I need to make sure that I'm exactly following. But usually what I do is and that's not to say sheet music's not important. Sheet music's extremely important. Being able to read it and understand it and get all of that technique down with understanding the nuances of the piece, extremely important. But I've learned over the past, 6 or 7 years that sheet music is really just the composer's attempt to express a lot of basically to express what they want you to hear. And that may sound like stupid and like artsy, but really sheet music is just trying to show you the connections in the on the piano or whatever instrument you're doing. It's trying to show you the connections between different patterns. And if you can spot and identify and understand those patterns, then you can make each song your own. You can see those patterns, you can see what the composer was trying to do, and then you can take them in a different direction if you want. That's called reharmonization. And so that's typically what I do. I either hear a song and I like the song, and so then I go and I figure out what key it was played in and what sorts of patterns were there, or I look at the sheet music and I check to see what they're doing and what patterns they have in the sheet music, and then I just take it and I do whatever I want with it after that. And so that's what I want to show you. Like, for example, that River Flows in You song. I've never seen any sheet music for it. But I recognize some of the patterns. And I also recognize that this song in particular has some fairly simple patterns that most people could do, even though it sounds really complex. So in order for you to do well with what I'm about to tell you, you really just need to understand 3 things of music theory. And that is going to give you a simple enough start. The first is what a major chord is. The second is what a minor chord is. And the third is what a scale is, or like a major key is, which let's take C major for our example. Okay, most beginning pianists know that one. So let's start with a major chord. A major chord, let's take the C, and we're going to take the C, and then we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, and we're going to take the E, and from the C, we're also going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 3, 5. And you hit that. That is a C major triad. And it sounds nice and bright and happy. If you were to take that 3 note and just lower it 1/2 step, then you get a C minor. And that sounds a little sadder, scary, more textured, right? So that's what a major is. And this is what a minor is. That works in with every single key on the piano. So if I go to A minor, and I go up the A flat, and I go up the A flat scale, there's my 3, and then keep going. There's my A flat major. And I can lower that middle one just 1/2 step, and there's your A flat minor. Every single key on the piano works that way. So, and keep that in mind as we're talking. There are some things I'm going to talk about that are, it applies to everything. It's just finding an anchor point and being relative to that anchor point. So C is our anchor point right now. But in the key of C, there are no flats, there are no sharps. You just go straight up. And there is something called a tonic scale. And that sounds a little scary, but really all it means is you're taking the tone in the scale, and then you're playing with only the notes in the scale. You're making a chord out of it. And in our case, to simplify it, we're only doing these triads, okay? So we have a C major at the beginning when you start on C. If you go up to D, that's a D minor. You go up to E, that's an E minor. And I'm only using keys that are in the, right? So we just finished E, now go up to F. That sounds happy, that's an F major. G, G major. A minor. B diminished, which we're not going to talk about today. And then C major. So every single tonic scale in a major key, in a major scale follows this approach, where you have a major, a minor, a minor, a major, a major, a minor, a diminished, and a major. You can do that on every single scale. So if I were to go to G, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. And they all follow that same exact scale. So why is that important for us to understand? It's important because, as I mentioned at the beginning, sheet music is not about presenting you a bunch of notes that you have to follow exactly. Sheet music is trying to represent the connections between different parts of music theory. Like, it's trying to show the connections of how to express a song properly. And one simple way to do this is to do something around what is called a chord progression. We just talked about how a C, if you take the C and you hit that, that's a C major. If we were to talk about the scale and not talk about the actual notes, but talk about where that lands in the scale of C, that is the first note. D is the second. E is the third. Fourth for F. G is the fifth. A is the sixth. B is the seventh. There are, and you will see some notation where it has Roman numerals to show what sort of, they're called chord progressions, which is just basically saying, how do you move from one chord to another chord in the scale? So that is a very common chord progression. Like 90% of pop music follows that. Oh, yep. Kind of hearing like some Jason Mraz in there. I'm pretty sure Jason Mraz follows that. But like that is called a chord progression. You go 1, 5, 6, 4. Now, that River Runs Through It song, that's the name. River Runs Through It. No, it's A River Flows in You. For that song, that follows a chord progression of 6, 4, 1, 5. So if you get anything out of this video, 6, 4, 1, 5 chord progression. That's all you really have to do for A River Flows in You. And that's oversimplifying it. But what I want us to do is just do a very quick exercise where you take your left hand and you play a triad on the 6th, the 4, the 1, and the 5. And with the right hand, a lot of times what they do with melody in songs is they take the chord that you're playing and then they just kind of mess around with the keys in that scale that are near that chord. So I'm playing an A minor with my left hand, A minor triad. And with my right hand, I can mess around with A, B, C, D, E. Now let's move to F. And then a C. And then a G. All of those notes were right around this chord. But it sounded really cool, didn't it? At least I think it sounds cool. But that's essentially all that A River Flows in You is doing. If you start, and so what I would suggest you do is you just practice 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, 4, 1, 5, and then you can even get some rolls. And then just start messing around with your right hand. And you notice I was moving my right hand the same. Once you do that, once you start getting comfortable, you can start picking out the melody. So it was like this. Up on the chord progression, but that's generally the idea, and that's what I like to do. You just kind of mess around with the area there, and that helps you figure out maybe how you can express it easier for you. It's what's coming naturally for you. And then if you want, you can go look at the sheet music, and you can kind of marry what you're doing to the sheet music, and it makes it so much easier for you to understand the sheet music, because you're like, oh, I know exactly what they're doing. And so even if I hit like a wrong note, I know that they're still in A, and I'll get back there. This is something I do all the time. I hope this is helpful for you as well. Thanks for watching.